Hey everyone, my name is Olivia, and I'm here to talk to you about Forex, what it is, how it came to be, and I'm doing this to refute any ideas you might have about Forex being a scam. Now, when I first heard about Forex, I thought it was too good to be true. So if you were like me, you absolutely, probably more than likely Googled, is Forex a scam? And if you did that, you probably found the same results that I did, which is basically a bunch of false information stating that it was. But if you actually go and Google Forex by itself, you get a plethora of data from well-known entities and establishments saying that Forex is very real, not a scam, and has been around much longer than we think. So, you're a WB member now. So, within the WB community, we believe that note takers are money makers. So, make sure you grab your notebook, get ready to take notes because you'll need them to pass the quiz. All right. Forex is the great grandchild of the barter system, and it's been around longer in theory. It predates the introduction of money. It is the act of trading goods or services for other services between two or more parties. It is the oldest form of commerce and is still used today. Now, Sam is seamstress, and I design and create clothing, and the people in my town are farmers and carpenters. I could exchange a garment for a few baskets of potatoes, or I could outfit the entire family of a carpenter in exchange for a new room being added to my home. Now we can estimate how much each of our services cost compared to the other and exchange services or goods without money ever exchanging hand. While the barter system is survivable today, seeing how it allows individuals to trade items and services that they need while keeping cash on hand for expenses that cannot be paid through the bartering, like mortgage, medical bills, utilities, and taxes. And just so you know, the IRS does consider bartering to be a form of income that incurs taxes. The barter system, however, is not without its issues. So, some of those issues are say you're offering the service of cleaning the pool. That's a seasonal service, or you grow pumpkins, produce that is popular for the fall. Now, what about Christmas trees? If you possess products or services that weren't always needed, you were in trouble. Produce also had a limited shelf life. As adults, we quickly find out that those grocery store strawberries will spoil in a few days. And so it was easy to inflate the cost of your products or services and there cause an unfair exchange. And then there's a cost that comes with transporting your goods, let alone storing them for the off season. So you're a farmer and you use the service in the winter with a promise of providing products in the spring or summer. Well, we can't control the weather. And so plenty of crops have been destroyed time and time again, year after year, when there's a random warm day or random warm week in the middle of the winter. This can trick your crops into thinking spring has arrived. And so they start to blossom. And once it goes back to normal winter temperatures, it kills your crop. Now you're in debt. All right. So that happens to a lot of farmers, especially the ones up north. Um, it can happen even in the South, where the weather can mess up the crops, it can trick them. And so coins were introduced as early as 600 BC in modern day Turkey, made of electrum, an alloy of gold and silver, but the concept of money had been around for a while. Various things were used as money. We're talking chocolate, for example, or shells. Coin had a significant social impact. It was regarded as elegant and just. They were allowing cities to be organized. It also gave people a way of showing off their wealth beyond their clothing. And so most cities had their own design to reflect their local pride. However, as you can expect, the weight of coins changed over time. And coins are easy to counterfeit and heavy to carry. Imagine carrying $100 in coins with you everywhere you went. All right. Countries eventually moved to regulate the way in which their coins were made. Like here in America, we have the Coinage Act of 1792. And then there's the Gresham's Law. There's no relation as far as I know. States that bad money drives out good. And basically what that means is that legally overvalued currency will tend to drive a legally undervalued currency out of circulation. Okay, so say like an old purely gold coin that used to be worth $10, like it was exchanged for $10. as far as we're concerned, was pushed out of the market, hoarded, even kept once the paper bill, the $10 paper bill was introduced into society. So there was no way that the material that creates a $10 bill is worth the same as a $10 coin of the 1500s. If anything, that gold coin has appreciated in value over time, while that $10 bill will always theoretically be worth $10. Now, keep in mind that when you think of the coinage shortage that took hold in 2020 and how that might have something to do with the introduction of cryptocurrency, just, keep that in mind. And then we have paper money. Paper money was first used by the Chinese in the form of privately issued bills of credit or exchange notes. It took a few centuries before it was picked up by other countries. And so within that time, the production of paper notes had grown until the value plummeted, prompting inflation to soar. And the Chinese actually completely eliminated their paper money in 1455, and they wouldn't adopt it for hundreds of years later. And so, as we know from all the movies and TV shows that highlight this criminal activity, paper money can easily be counterfeited. Like the Chinese financial institution and governments were printing out more money than the gold or precious metals they had in their possession. And so countries with a $1 bill is either more or less valuable than it was a decade ago. And if you're an American like me, the value of the $1 has absolutely decreased in value of the decades. And so that brings us to the gold standard. All right. Countries across the world agreed that their currency would be backed by gold their country had in their possession. But when the World War One and Two happened, governments printed more money to fund their military exploits. And so the more money they printed, the more the currency depreciated. All right. So say it's 1720. All right. Your country only has printed $105 bills. That's all there is in circulation, $105 bills. And your country actually has 10 gold bars in their possession. All right. This is it's an extreme exaggeration. But for every one $5 paper bill is equivalent to 40 ounces of gold, which is really equivalent to $202.51 based on what gold is worth today. Okay. If we fast forward 300 years, there are now 100,000 $5 bills in circulation. And now your country has 20 gold bars. Now, they have not accumulated the same amount of bars based on the amount of $5 bills they have in circulation. And that is essentially what's been happening over the course of our life. I'm knocking on 35. I've seen that change, that inflation, where a dollar, you can't, I used to buy a Snickers bar for 25 cents when I was a kid. Snicker bar goes for a good $1.50, $1.75 now. So I can see that inflation. I can see that change. All right. And so now with 100,000 $5 bills in circulation, a $5 bill is only worth 0.08 ounces of gold, which is really equivalent to 40 cents. And so this is what was happening. Countries were printing more money than gold that they had. And so that was creating, basically decreasing the value of their currency. All right. So that brings us to the Bretton Woods Agreement. In 1944, the Allied nations agreed that gold was to be the basis for the American dollar, and other currencies were to be pegged to the US dollar's value. So basically, the other Allied nations said, we're not going to base our currency off of gold. We're going to peg it to the American dollar, and then the American dollar is going to base their value based on gold. All right. So essentially, that meant that the USD and gold could be exchanged quickly and easily. And then to convert currencies, countries settled their international balances in American dollars. And then the American dollars would be fully convertible to gold. And with this agreement came the creation of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which monitors exchange rates. All right. And so this organization still exists to this day. But this particular agreement, the Bretton Woods Agreement, came to an end in 1971 when President Nixon called for suspension. He no longer wanted to back the American dollar with gold. And this made way for the ForEx market. All right. I'll leave that there so that y'all can take your notes. Okay. So The floating exchange system. All right. And so while America embraced the floating exchange system in 1971, what we now know as the foreign exchange market, it was officially adopted by the world in 1973. Although China remains to be a country that backs its currency by gold. So they're the one government, the one currency that does not participate in the foreign exchange market outside of the other countries that are particularly smaller, and they may accept other larger player currencies like the American dollar, the euro, the pound, what have you, things like that. And so to participate in the market, you needed $500,000 to and funds to hire a whole team of people around the world seeking the price of currency. All right. So even when the foreign exchange market rolled out in 1971 and then became accessible to other countries in 1973, it was not available to people like you and me. Unless you're a millionaire, or a billionaire, or a trillionaire, and you have $500,000 to spare, you got a whole team that you can hire to call around the world, you know, asking for the price of a currency. Typically, you weren't rich enough to participate in the forex market. All right. And so you know, the foreign exchange rate is determined by the private market through supply and demand. And so our currencies are no longer backed by gold. All right. So like I said, China is not participating, but no, anybody's currency, any government's currency that's participating in the forex market is not backed by gold. It is determined by supply and demand. So if we have, Coachella, that means that Americans, even people all over the world, are flocking to California to attend Coachella. People flock to Europe during the summer, because of the holiday. I'm sorry, not holiday. Because it's summer, kids are off school, what have you. Parents want to travel, and it's typically cold in Europe during the winter. It's not warm like the Caribbean, and so depending on where tourism is flocking, depending on what's going on in the world, like when there was the bombing of the cathedral in France, the value of the currency took a hit because people were canceling their plans to visit France. All right. So if there is a higher demand for that particular currency, say that day, that week, that month, that year, what have you, even within the second, it will change. And so now the value of a currency is based off supply and demand. All right. It is thought to be self-correcting. If the demand of a currency is low, the value will decrease. If the demand is high, the value will increase. And so on days when news drops, information about the FOMC, which is the Federal Open Market Committee, around things like the actions a country's central bank is taking around interest rates and inflation. All right. These things affect the value of a currency as well. GDP, the gross domestic product, will report on the value of local goods and services. All right. And then there's a CPI, Consumer Price Index, tracks the prices of goods and services consumed locally around transportation, food, and medical care. And then there's also the unemployment rate, elections, a pandemic like COVID-19, a bombing, some other disaster. All these things affect the supply and demand of a currency. All right. And so some of us, will weigh in on the news when we're trading. Others will just make note when news is dropping, knowing that it'll probably affect the currency just a little bit. All right. But some actually account for news, others don't. So we'll leave it up to you. But as I said, you want to keep track of FOMC, GDP, CPI, and various other things. And so we'll be talking more about that in the Forex Blueprint for those who are interested more in learning about the news around the Forex market. All right. Let's talk about market participants. All right. There's people all around the world that trade within the Forex market. You and I, people like us, are formally called retail traders. Yet individuals like you and myself don't make up the majority of the market. We're not the ones to actually make the value of a currency move. There are major players within the Forex market. We're talking governments, not just mine here in America, but yours and many others, central banks. A central bank is essentially the head bank, not a bank that we can walk into, or drive to and then park and ask them to pull out money. No, a central bank is essentially the bank that our banks are borrowing from. They're the ones that are setting inflation rates, interest rates, things like that. Other financial institutions, hedgers, speculators, retail traders. So when banks are off on holidays and on the weekends, we don't trade. All right. So if your country has a particular holiday, and say you live in Japan, well, the Japanese yen, if you're trading a pair that has a Japanese yen, you typically don't want to trade that pair that day because Japan's on holiday. If America has their holiday, if it's the weekend for us, our weekends kick off at 5 p.m. on Friday, and our banks open up at some banks 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday. So between that time, you don't want to be trading. And even then, on the weekends, we don't. Like I said, we don't trade. The forex markets for regular pairs closes at 5 p.m. on Fridays. And then we have speculators, those who specialize in a few pairs are trading. All right. We want to get you to the point where you're a speculator, where you're specializing in a few trades. You know them like the back of your hand. And then these major players are trading and likely trading against us. All right. So since then, the forex market, there has been the Plaza Accord of 1985, where France, Germany, the US, the UK, and Japan agreed to depreciate the value of the American dollar relative to the yen and the Deutschmark. All right. Then there's the Maastricht Treaty, or the creation of the European Union, formerly known. And the European Union is a group of 28 countries that operates as a cohesive economic and political bloc. But 19 of those countries use the euro as their official currency, which was news to me when I learned about this, because I thought the euro was always around. But yeah, I was like I was 8 years old when the euro was formed, which is crazy, right? All this was happening when I was a little thing. And so while it's possible to trade in the forex market online as far back as 1985, all right? So if you were trading in the New York Stock Exchange, and this is what I did, I started trading the stock exchange when I was in high school. I learned about it in middle school, and I didn't start trading until I was in high school. All right. But my first account was actually with E-Trade, and they were the first online New York Stock Market Exchange online broker. All right. But the first online retail broker, let me remind you that a retail broker or retail trader is somebody like you and me. That's what they call us. They call us retail. The first retail broker came to be in 1996 for Forex. So we got 1985 for the New York Stock Exchange. In 1996, 11 years later, the first Forex online trade broker came to be. Now, prior to the development of Forex trading platforms in the late 90s, the Forex market was restricted to large financial institutions and millionaires. So like I say, you needed $500,000 to trade in the market before 1996. This brings us to internet trading, all right? And so internet trading allowed a person sitting at home alone, you no longer needed a team, you no longer need to hire a team to find accurate prices at the click of a button. Internet trading also gave way to emerging markets like those in Southeast Asia, whose currency wasn't part of the Forex market initially. So now we have all these smaller countries who are now introducing their currency into Forex market because of internet trading. It attracted capital and currency speculation all over the world. Web technology allowed the fostering of fast and easy ways for retail traders to access the markets, but also for currency pairs while trading from their computers. So initially, trading platforms were based on basic programs, the programs we would download to computers. And depending on how old you are, you may not have known this, but I'm old enough to remember the days when you would go to Best Buy, to Walmart, to Micro Center, if you guys are familiar with that store, purchase the CD or on a floppy disk and put it into your computer, download it, and then it would connect with the internet, and that's how we trade in the market. All right. And this was followed by the development of easy to use interfaces. All right. So if you're familiar with Windows 1995 or 86, before that, at the time it seemed really, but like interfaces had to be easier to use. All right. Because we're talking like people who, they needed advanced features for charting analysis. So it went from these basic programs You click and you see it. So I can only imagine what those interfaces look like. And now they're becoming easier. Now we're allowing people to chart up, to mark up, to have technical analysis, and that introduced books and analysis and experts and all these different ways to analyze the Forex market. And so naturally the next stage was to move to web-based platforms, all right? All right, mobile devices such as tablets and smartphones. And so today what we see is $6.6 trillion is traded every single day. Mind you, $6.6 trillion every day in the Forex market. That's compared to the hundreds of billions traded in the New York Stock Exchange. All right. So there's a whole lot more money moving in the Forex market than there is in the New York Stock Exchange, even though the New York Stock Exchange has technically been around longer. All right. And so the Forex market is technically open 24 hours a day, Monday through Friday, if you're trading regular pairs and indices. But if you're trading against cryptocurrency, you can trade the American dollar or your currency against cryptocurrency. And then if you're doing that, then the Forex market is technically open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are so many books, organizations, and education around Forex strategies that within the WB community, within the Wealth Builder community, you're going to be learning about quite a few. All right. Each of our educators have their own trading style, a way that they look at the charts, when and why they take trades. You will be learning every single strategy that they have so that you can pick a trading strategy that best suits you. So don't stress about all these other strategies. You're going to be learning about each one. And by the end of the Forex blueprint, of our Forex blueprint, you're going to start to have an idea of what kind of trader you are, what kind of style of trader you are, when you want to trade, what pairs you want to trade, or indices, what have you, even if you want to trade cryptocurrency. So don't rush through this. Take it slowly, learn, and immediately apply. All right, so that you can figure out what trading strategy best suits you. All right. And so from one's phone, we have access to 50 currency pairs and 12 indices. All right. And we're going to further discuss that in detail in the next lesson. All right. So, like I said, my name's Olivia. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the Forex chat group. If you're not in the Forex chat group, you need to go back to the new member page and join all of the chat groups. Okay. And so that is it. I will see you in the next lesson.